I want to be careful about this because I've got dear friends who are Catholic, and I know we've got podcast, radio show family members who are Catholic. I'm not Catholic. I've been curious about being Catholic. It's not something that's going to happen now. But Mel Gibson has issued some criticism about the Catholic Church being surrounded by. So does he have reason for these claims? Is there anything that's, I don't know, in recent church history that will indicate that's the case? And there's been this scandal, of course, the abuse scandals in the churches. I've spoken to some of the victims. It's horrific what happened. But I don't think people truly understand how horrific it is. I think Mel Gibson does. Mel's a guy driven by faith. He's an imperfect man. I like you, probably you saw that video of him in an absolutely drunken just rant about Jewish people, and it was ugly, and he didn't just apologize for that. He went out and talked with people and met with people and went dark for a number of years and went inward and prayed about, hey, man, how did I get myself in that position where I'm toasted, and saying things like this about people? And he's making a bit of a resurgence, also becoming kind of a guy willing to speak freely about society, politically. Maybe this is part of his time in the wilderness. He chatted with Joe Rogan about the Catholic Church and what he sees in it. And is there a reason to believe that Mel Gibson has reason to say these things beyond his own wisdom? The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, meaning that once you fear the Lord, you can begin to act in a way like you do fear him, right? And not in a sense that you're terrified that he's lurking around waiting to say, caught you sinning, now you're going to hell. That's not what God does. It's fear of disappointing and loving God. It's the way I view this. I use a product that's called wisdom, and this came out of the mind of a guy named Dr. Patrick Gentempo, who has a podcast that's called Christ Revealed. So not only is he a doctor, he's a guy who's deeply, deeply interested in helping others abide with Christ. As part of his research, he was in the Holy Land, and he's in the Bible, and he's reading all these mentions of spices and herbs in really a sacred sense, sometimes for healing, the potency, and then he's in the Holy Land smelling these things, and God just lit this flame. Like, this is what I want you to create. So this is an oil-based herbal blend, and I happen to take it straight throughout the day, and I love the taste of it. It is absolutely potent, and its benefits, immunological, mood, control of mind, focus, and it helps harness inflammation to help your body. Inflammation's there to tell us we're in pain, but it's also there to help our muscles grow. There's reasons God designed this into us. So you can try wisdom yourself. Go to trywisdomnow.com/Todd. That's trywisdomnow.com/Todd. You'll get 33% off. You'll get a 180-day money-back guarantee, and you'll get free shipping. You'll also get the benefits I enjoy: focus, clarity, calmness, inflammation being used to better your bodies. It's trywisdomnow.com/Todd. This is Mel Gibson on with Joe Rogan.
When they appoint some cardinal in some diocese, and he's been covering up for like people who are, like Theodore McCarrick or Cardinal Wuerl or those kind of guys. I mean,
or the Pope.
Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely. I'm
Benedict.
Not Benny. Well, he was covering up, but so is the guy now.
Is he really?
Well, yeah. It's not great.
I thought he was like the more progressive Pope.
Oh, he's very progressive.
I love that the idea that he's progressive means that he wouldn't be covering up for people who want to abuse children. It's the progressives who are prepping the environment in schools to make that not just likely, but unavoidable.
Yes,
but he's covering up for stuff as well. Well, they all are. I mean, it's a dark institution in a lot of ways because it's history.
Bless Gibson for this. Joe Rogan doesn't know the Catholic Church. I mean, he's read some things. He's not a man of faith. He doesn't know Jesus. He, to this day, is sort of an agnostic and loves to have guys come on a show and try to convince him, and he's just not going to be convinced. It's hard. It's a difficult thing when you're a guy like Joe Rogan with all the money that you're ever going to need, all the influence you're ever going to need. And I'm not saying life is easy. I'm sure Joe's got his struggles. But that's really hard. I mean, Jesus said, it's really hard for a rich guy to make it into the kingdom of heaven. because, hey, why do I need heaven? I've got it here. But just God bless Mel Gibson for this.
Well, you know, the institution, it was instituted by Christ, you know, but that doesn't mean that it can't be flawed. And there's a school of thought that says it isn't what it purports to be anymore. It's moved away from what it was intended to be and what it is. Almost, there's a guy called Bishop Vigano who says it's a counterfeit parallel church. And it's running an entirely different religion.
So Christ said that it was upon the confession of Peter. Peter had said that you're the Messiah, you're the Son of God. Jesus said, I did not reveal this to you, but my Father in heaven. And blessed be you, Peter, and it's upon this rock I will build my church. Catholics will take that as saying that Peter became the first pope. He absolutely became the first leader of the church. I mean, that's difficult to debate. But Catholics say it's upon that rock then that the structure of the Catholic Church was built by humans. And the Catholic Church went through a period of time where people will be being treated as kings. Popes were treated as kings. To some degree, they still are. There's the walls of the Vatican. And this is why, and this is, again, I don't mean to offend Catholic people. This is why I can't be Catholic. Because the temple curtain's been rebuilt. You know, Rome has all these secrets in their secret libraries that we don't get to go see. They've got artifacts we don't get to go see. I have a particular challenge with I have to confess to a priest. Well, I can confess to brothers and sisters. In our church, we're to confess to one another, and I think Scripture tells us this. We're to confess to one another. So Jesus created a system of brothers, not a system of bosses. But Mel Gibson's point about the church being a place where people who want to inflict their lustly desires in the bodies of kids, does he have a support for that? He does. There's a guy named Cardinal Robert McElroy, and he's been promoted. This current pope, who I consider to be an absolute heretic, in fact, I believe he's satanic. Why would I say that? Because he lies. He lies about key aspects of the Christian faith. The current pope has said that there is no one way to heaven. There's multiple ways to get there. That absolutely contradicts what Jesus said. I am the truth, the way, and the life. No one gets to the Father but through me. He doesn't get to contradict Jesus and then say that he follows Jesus. So this guy who got his raise, Robert McElroy, and this is from LifeSite News, brings with him a long, disturbing history of promoting views at odds with the magisterium of the church. He has issued calls to admit the divorced and remarried people actively engaged in a homosexual lifestyle to receive Holy Communion. Indeed, McElroy has staunchly opposed church teachings on the intrinsically disordered nature of homosexual activity, decrying the Catechism of the Catholic Church as employing very destructive language on the issue. The cardinals backed the work of notorious LGBT so-called T advocate Father James Martin, S.J., and suggested that same-sex marriages can enrich the lives of participants. In 2021, as bishop, McElroy defended admittance to Holy Communion of Catholic politicians who openly support abortion, contrasting with the prohibition stipulated in Canon 915 of the canon law, calling any such denial a political weapon. Now, just to go back through that statement, I'm certain that there are people who have their earthly lives enhanced in same-sex relationships. I'm certain of it. I have friends who would say that their earthly lives are enhanced. I have a former business partner. She and her female partner have lived together for, I guess now, 40 years. And they both tell you it's enriched their lives. I know people who've gone through extramarital affairs, long-term, and said, look, it was very rewarding. It enriched my life. It probably saved my marriage. I know people who've said that. When you're in eternity and you look back at a 20-year affair from hell because you removed yourself from God's grace, you were so engrossed in sin that he could not be around you. What's that 20 years going to seem like? There's a huge difference between a worldview and a kingdom view. The kingdom view is a forever view. When the church etches away at the prohibitions on sexual activity, they etch and they etch and they etch and they blur and they blur and they blur. What the leaders are saying is all things are okay. as long as you're good with words. So does Mel Gibson have a point? Well, we've got the abuse scandals. We know about the numbers there. We know that they are comparable to the same scandals in government schools. Media doesn't want to talk about that, but the numbers are about the same. Because anywhere you have access to kids, if you want to abuse them, you're going to seek power over them. Back to LifeSite News, a different article here. After McElroy was raised to lead the Diocese of San Diego in 2015 and then named as Cardinal in 2022, Rachel Mastrogiacomo, a victim of clerical, said that McElroy will be setting policy for the church and likely be involved in the selection of the next pontiff, which fills me with fear. So this woman has reason to fear. She was is part of a group of women who were abused in what are truly satanic sexual rituals, forcibly abused. These so-called priests used religious artifacts on bodies of people and kids, being the people. After the priests did what their fallen, sin nature, demonic desires wanted, they told the kids they had sinned, the kids, and that they needed to wash with holy water. Does Mel Gibson have a point? If you were a man seeking to impose your lustly desires upon children, would the Catholic Church appeal to you as a place to go get that done? What about the government schools? When all things are allowed, nothing is forbidden. And when you remove God as judge of what is allowed, here's what you're left with: your wordplay. Are you able to convince yourself mentally that what you're doing is okay? And are you willing and able to convince others that, look, we're just being fair? I mean, the Bible may say adultery is not allowed, fornication is not allowed. It may say that same-sex activity is not allowed. But we can kind of twist that language just the same way that Satan did in the book of Genesis. I mean, surely you won't die.